Hey witches, Tiffany here. Today I'm going to give you a step-by-step tutorial of performing a cord-cutting candle spell. You can see one burning right here behind me. I had somebody that I know specifically request that I do this spell for them, and we all know this one is a very, very popular one right now, especially on TikTok. I see it a lot on Reddit. So I thought, hey, let's go ahead and make a video out of this. But another reason this particular one is so popular is because it is highly effective. However, keep in mind there are lots of different types of cord cutting rituals out there. There are some that are way more elaborate than this, and there are some that are about the same, and then there are also some that are way more simplistic. Some that don't even use any ingredients, they just require visualization. So this is just one of them. All of them are very effective. This one I personally have found to be the most effective in my own life. That doesn't mean that'll be the same for you. I think that goes for a lot of people though, because it is popular, and I think that's why. But again, I mean, I didn't do like a study on that. Before jumping in, a cord cutting ritual is a ritual performed to energetically cut ties with another person, a place, an attitude, a frame of mind, intrusive thoughts, insecurities, addictions. It is most often used to cut ties with another person, but I just want to be clear that this is such a multi-purpose tool you can use for a lot of different scenarios and situations. And of course, that relationship, it could be romantic, it could be an ex-romantic partner, it could be family, friend, your ex-boss, it just, you know, it's whatever you need. And I know I'm going to get this question, so I'm going to say it right now. Yes, this ritual will be effective in cases where a magical bond has been created. So for instance, if you and your ex-spouse did a hand fasting, yes, this will help to undo that. But the bond between you and this other person, or what have you, doesn't have to be a magical one. It doesn't have to be something that you performed a spell, performed a ritual, and manifested. It could have just been something that built up over time. It could be some sort of control that they have over you. So again, it's a lot of different scenarios. I also want you to keep in mind that while a cord cutting is very similar to a banishing ritual, it is not the same thing. They do have their differences. For an example, imagine that you are handcuffed to your ex. The cord cutting would remove the handcuffs, but you're both just kind of still standing there. Yes, removing the handcuffs makes it easier for one or both of you to distance yourselves or ignore the other person, but it doesn't actually send anybody away, whereas a banishing does. A banishing puts up a wall between you two. If you've tried one spell or the other, and the person or situation or place, either you keep getting drawn back to them or they keep pulling back to you, trying to bring you back in, or if the overall situation is just really extremely toxic, then what I would recommend is performing a cord cutting ritual followed up by a banishing spell, which I do have a video for that. I will link it down below in the description box. And then finishing it off with a self-cleansing just to remove any last bits of their residue. And I have a video on self-cleansing as well, so I'll link that down below too. All right, so finally we're jumping into how to do it. For brevity, I will be speaking for the rest of this video as if we are talking about you, the spellcaster, wanting to break your bond with another person. And that is, in fact, what this particular spell behind me is for, this cord cutting ritual that I've already done, and I'll show you in a moment. That's just for brevity. If your situation is a little different, you're trying to break an addiction or step away from flaws, insecurities, harmful thought patterns, what have you, then in that case, just substitute your own situation. Here are your ingredients. You're going to need 2 black candles, which is what I personally prefer, or you can use 1 white, that'll represent you, and 1 black to represent the other person. As always, if this doesn't really feel right to you, feel free to work with whatever color correspondences you feel fit your situation. Then you will need string or twine. Again, feel free to work with a color correspondence if you want. Then you'll need a fire-safe plate or surface. A baking sheet or even a couple layers of tinfoil will work great for this. Next is a carving tool to carve into the candles, a match or a lighter to light the candles. And this one is optional. I have chosen to work with black salt in the background. You might want to dress your candles. You might want to encircle your candles for extra protection or an extra boost of just get them away from me. Or you may want to dress each individual candle to kind of better represent each of you as individual people, it's sort of up to you. That is entirely optional. You really don't need that step at all. You do not need to dress the candles with oil or vinegar or herbs or anything. You don't need to encircle them with anything. But again, I just like to throw that in there because a lot of people do like to add something, and I did just because I like the added little woof of it, but optional. If you work with the phases of the moon and time permits, it's not an emergency situation, I would recommend performing this ritual during the waning moon, or even better, during a dark moon. That just adds a little extra push in the right direction, but it's not completely necessary, especially if you do not feel an affinity with the moon. You don't have to do it. And again, if it's an emergency situation where time is of the essence, then definitely don't worry about it. Just do it whenever you need it. First step, you are going to carve your name into one candle and the name of the other person into the other candle. So each of these candles now represent each of you. So I'm not showing this because, again, I don't want to put other people's personal business on blast. This is not a spell I did for myself. This is one that I'm doing for somebody else. So just not showing that part. Then if you choose to do so, go ahead and dress your candles. Place your candles in candle holders, if you have them, approximately 4 inches apart on your fire-safe surface. If you do not have candle holders, you can melt the bottom of the candles and stick them to the surface by holding them in place until the wax rehardens. Please be sure your fireproof surface is large enough to catch either candle should one fall over. As always, never leave any burning candle unattended, but note that fixing them to the surface this way is way more precarious than a candle in a holder. Also, keep in mind that even if you are using candle holders, you're still going to want that fire-safe surface underneath because that cord is going to burn through later and it might drop down. At this point is when I went ahead and encircled both candles with black salt. Then tie the string or twine around the center of the 2 candles, fastening them together. This is going to represent your bond to one another, and it will be burnt through, as I already mentioned. Make sure to leave just a little bit of slack, but you want to keep it generally centered. Also, FYI, some of you might find it easier depending on if you're sticking your candles down or if you're using candle holders. It might be easier to tie them together first and then put your candles in place. Whichever order you do it in is entirely up to you. It doesn't really matter. Now you're going to light each candle, and as you do so, focus on the person that each one represents. You may even choose to say something out loud, something like, I light my own fire. I light the fire of insert name of person. Spend some time meditating and visualizing as they are burning. You are first going to focus on what is binding you together. Was it a spell? Or was it maybe trauma bonding? Or just history? This is somebody you've known since childhood. Or blood bond, they're a relative. Focus on what keeps you bound together and what makes that binding so toxic that you need to break away from it. Then I want you to shift over to slowly getting that distance from them. Whether it is just a matter of, kind of getting away from them, going low contact, or completely cutting contact altogether. You never speak again for the rest of your lives. Just focus on what that process would look like and imagine what it would make you feel, how it would make you feel after all is said and done. How much, yes, it might hurt a little bit. It might cause a little grief, a little bit of heartache, but consider also the real reason you're doing this. As much as you keep getting pulled back to that person, you're doing this ritual for a reason. You know that there's something toxic there, that for the sake of yourself, possibly for the sake of them as well, you just can't be together. So imagine, despite the grief or heartache that might be there in your situation, how much better you'll feel. The relief, the freedom. And imagine what life would look like going forward for you without this person around, focusing on the positive things. At this point, you're gonna do essentially what I'm doing now. You're just gonna allow these candles to burn all the way down. At a certain point, of course, it is going to hit that midsection and start burning through the cord. That is when the official cord cutting occurs. Now, if you're in a time crunch, I suppose you could end the ritual there once that portion is complete. However, I don't recommend it. Usually with any time you're using candle magic, you want to let the candle burn all the way through. Also, at that point, a lot of people like to sit and observe and see, does one burn faster than the other? What is the behavior of the flames, of the smoke? Which end starts burning the cord first? And they like to use that to sort of divine, maybe the situation in general, how the other person might feel about this shift. On one hand, you know, you're going to find yourself in a position where you can ignore this person if they reach out to you. And if you suspect that they might lash out, then yes, it might be a good idea to kind of just keep an eye and observe that. You should be babysitting those candles anyway, like I already said. But it might be important to kind of study that and try to interpret the meaning, but only if you feel like it's a dangerous situation and you just want to be prepared and know in advance that you need to have your guard up, you need to be ready. Otherwise, people like to do it. I say don't bother, because at this point you're trying to get this person out of your life, or at the very least you're trying to distance yourself from them. Even if you don't want to completely go no contact, you're distancing yourself. Why do you care how they react? You need to just put that out of your mind, put it behind you. It's like breaking up with somebody, but then still going on their social media. Just cut it off. I know that that's popular to do, and I understand the curiosity behind it. Believe me, I do. But at the end of the day, you're performing this ritual for a reason, because at the very least, you want to distance yourself from this person. So you need to just put those things in the back of your mind instead of performing this ritual and then completely just ignoring your own intention by being like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? How are they going to react? What are they going to do? Who cares? You're moving on from them. And from there, I recommend you just get rid of whatever's left over of the cord, of the ashes, the salt, the wax. Just get it out of your sight, get it out of your presence. If you need a little bit of extra assistance of getting someone or something out of your life, do check out my videos on self-cleansing and on banishing. Again, if you find that this particular cord cutting ritual doesn't quite work for you, or it just doesn't feel right, look it up. There are so many more out there. I wish I could do a video on every single one, but I mean, I think you guys would get kind of bored of that after a while. It might also, at this point, be a good idea to perform a self-love ritual, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, is doing right by yourself. So you can check that video out here.